Hello, I'm Amanda Ross, and I've worked at Tulsa Community College for over 5 years now. Most of that time spent in our Access Services office handling interlibrary loan. I also have an interest in copyright, though I am not a lawyer. Last year, I completed Harvard's Copyright X course and the Creative Commons certification. All physical lending and borrowing ILLs come through our Northeast campus for processing and are then distributed to their pickup locations. One librarian typically handles all requests and processing for the entire college, and that is me, but my director and another librarian are backups in case I am out. So in the description for this session, you may have noticed I called our version of CDL conservative, but by that I meant being selective and mindful of our resources such as time and money, not just about any risk factor in terms of copyright. I hope to show you an example of how you could start doing CDL right now with the resources you probably already have. I also want to state that since proposing this presentation, we have actually lent out one CDL title already at the time of this recording, so we're just getting our feet wet, but we are in the pool. Stay tuned for another water analogy later on in this presentation. So in the spirit of reciprocity, we saw potential with CDL for a few specific titles, specifically books in our collection. There is one title in particular that we have to say no to, or that we had to say no to so much that it really drove me to want to implement controlled digital lending. It is clearly a book that people want to read but can't find access to, and it was just sitting on our shelf unused otherwise because we knew the value of it and how rare it was or is. There are so many resources that cover the concept of controlled digital lending or CDL better than I ever could, so I won't go into the dynamics of that here. But after looking into a few products, I didn't feel we needed a new one to help us manage CDL. However, I am leaving that possibility open if we see new demands for our collection. So we researched ways of making what we already have work and came up with a workflow that we are still adjusting as we run into new scenarios. So the elephant in the room. The Hatchet versus Internet Archive case is one I was and still am watching closely. I'm waiting to see how the appeals process shakes out, of course. So much happened before, during, and after my proposal for this presentation. There's a lot, but after the ruling happened, the CDL Implementers Forum hosted speakers that included attorneys breaking down the case and its implications so far for libraries and others. After that April 25th session, I was much more confident that we could move forward when seeing that others still are as well at their institutions. So I do recommend you be a lurker like me in places like the forum. On the guide I am sharing out as well, you will see collected resources for understanding CDL that I recommend, as well as a link to the forum or the implementers page. After the judgment came out in August 2023, the same month that this is being recorded, I found the Library Futures overview to be really affirming as well, and it is also linked on the guide. So we are maybe less willing to make a big splash with CDL, but I still feel confident in our approach during this time. So this is a screenshot of our general workflows. You can text the term NWILL to the phone number on the screen to get a link to the private LibGuide if our SMS keywords are working. There was a hang-up to our annual registration process at the time of this recording, but hopefully it's sorted out by the time it's posted. But from that point, you could maybe email the link to yourself to view as intended on a desktop, or you can email me to get a link using my contact info shown later on in the slides. The texting feature will be valid only for a few months, so you won't be able to access everything on the guide. It can give you a sense of how we handle interlibrary loan at our college, but the last tab, called Controlled Digital Lending, is a restricted tab to or not a restricted, a redirect tab to another guide for controlled digital lending workflows that we rolled out this year, and that guide is also private. So when you select that last tab, you are taken to this redirect. The tabs at the top show you how I organized our workflows. I won't go into a lot of detail because you can explore it on your own, but setting this up is also how I convinced myself it could work. It also functions as a way my coworkers can understand what I'm doing in case they need to handle CDL while I'm away. The first box on the guide mentions research I did in my official proposal to my director. The most important aspect of that proposal was realizing that a product we already had, Microsoft's SharePoint, could do what we needed it to do, to add digital rights management, or DRM, and create expiring links to files. However, the SharePoint site we were using for our regular documentation didn't allow for certain settings, so to speak. So after reaching out to our IT systems administrator, we realized that a new SharePoint site would need to be created for us, which they were willing to do. So we have a site for documentation and a site for CDL files, essentially. So before settling on SharePoint, I had looked into G Suite's Google Drive, which some of your institutions may have instead of Microsoft products, and that can also create expiring links and stop downloads. In terms of digitizing, as you will see on the guide, it was very important to me to outline that we in the Access Services Office do the scanning and assessments, the copyright assessments, in a way that mimics how we treat e-reserves at the college as well. We do not have copyright police going into faculty Blackboard courses to make sure copyright law is being followed. Rather, we allow faculty to make fair use assessments and post the copied content to their courses, all while the college is not necessarily endorsing their actions. They have to follow our copyright policy. But faculty do not seek legal counsel every time they upload something to their course. Same with what our ILL office does. For ILL, we make copyright assessments all the time as to what we will and will not scan to send in for a copy request. So in other words, our approach to CDL aligns with other, for lack of a better word, approaches at the college. The first time that a CDL title was requested and the CDL version accepted, we had to tell them, the other library, that we could only extend the due date / expiration date so far. The SharePoint site wouldn't allow us to match what DePasa automatically generated for them. This might be a setting that can be changed in SharePoint, but instead we set a reminder to extend the due date in SharePoint using that same link later on for their patron once it got closer to that date where it was set to expire. Clunky, but worth it in my opinion, and this shows that there is still room for improvement to our workflows. These highlighted areas are what we needed to set when sharing a link to a title. Just highlighting those. And here's what it looks like when the link expired, and also where we extended the due date or are able to delete a shared link if you're curious. So I hope this glimpse of our process shows you how simple it can be and that you probably don't need something fancy to start participating in CDL. I welcome feedback if you think something about our process could be improved, like once you see our guide, as well as questions. I encourage you to copy our workflows and make them your own if it helps. Thank you.